So the WNBA playoffs, the playoffs are here, and today we're going to be doing a prediction video for the entirety of the playoffs. And if you guys enjoy this content, subscribe. We're trying to hit 36.2k by the end of the day. But anyway, first matchup is the New York Liberty versus the Atlanta Dream, who are going to be playing first. So this one is a really interesting matchup because the Dream did just comfortably beat the Liberty, but the Liberty also weren't 100% going for it. But looking at the season before, the Dream did lose 3 times. They lost twice by nearly 20, and then they were close in a game at the end of June. But for me, the Liberty might just be the team to beat. They really might just be. When it comes to the Atlanta Dream, like, they have got Ryan Howard, who could give you 35 at any given day. Like, this is the best of 3 series. Ryan Howard could give you 35 on any given day. Jordan Canada will probably guard Sabrina Ionescu as well as anyone in this league is going to guard Sabrina Ionescu. And then also, you've got Tina Charles. She'll give Jonquel a little bit of trouble. But for me, the Liberty are just a lot better. Like, Naz Hillman is the only starting power forward in the WNBA worse than Alyssa Smith. She is going to be trying to guard Stewie. That's not going to work. Naz Hillman guarding Stewie is not smart. She has to, though. Because you've got Jordan Canada, you've got Alicia Gray, you've got Ryan Howard. You have got now Benijah Laney, who's going to be as good at guarding like anyone. Like, she's going to be as good at guarding like Ryan Howard as anyone in this league. I reckon Sloot doesn't play that many minutes in the series for matchup reasons. Because Sabrina, as good as Sabrina is at the 2, as much as she's better on offense at the 2, I think they match up better with Phoebich guarding Alicia Gray. Or, probably Phoebich guarding Gray. Sabrina just getting cooked by Jordan Canada, but Sloot's going to get cooked by Jordan Canada too at this stage in her career. So, I'm going to call 2-0. I'm going to call 2-0 for the Liberty. And I can't believe you can't just play the playoff bracket game. There's no like playoff bracket game like there is in the NBA. So we are going to have the Liberty going through this one in 2-0. The Aces versus the Storm. If you had asked me 3 weeks ago, I would have said Storm win. But the Storm are in form. Now, the Aces are in form. The Storm do match up okay to them because they do play a day later, but they don't play a day later. They play at 3 a.m. But the Storm have got you've got Gary Williams, they've Jordan Horston, you've got Nneka Nwumeke, and Leslie Magbegor, who I think both can give a little bit of trouble to Aja Wilson. It was 3-1 the season series. And this game is important because, again, I think, if I'm not mistaken, this game basically, as much as anything, decided that the Aces were going to be ahead of the Storm in the standings. But Gabby Williams played 38. Nneka Nwumeke played 32. Actually, there was no Ezzy Magbegor in this game. Okay, she's out with concussion protocol. She'll be fine. I'd say I think they're just going to be a little bit better than people suggest. I really like Nneka Nwumeke. I have a feeling that Jewel Lloyd just hoops in one game. Don't know why. I have a feeling for one game, Jewel Lloyd just hoops. I think the best player in this series. This is a crazy shout to say that Nneka Nwumeke is going to be the best player in the series. And I'm going to predict goes to 3. I think this goes to 3. I think Vegas split their home court. And then with this game going to 3, the away game is in. Also, for people that don't know, it's home, away. It's going to go. I'm trying to talk myself into Seattle winning, but no, I'll go Aces. I'll go Aces winning. The Phoenix Mercury versus the Minnesota Lynx. The Mercury are one of these like deceptively good. This is one of those teams where everyone's like, they don't stand a chance. They're not good enough. But like, if you want to look at the players in this matchup, like Injury report, Beck Allen's out. All of these players are going to be back, other than maybe Dorky you has. But as far as the matchups are concerned, did the Lynx go 3-0? No, the Mercury won the first game, by the way. And this was, if you guys didn't see this game right here, this was mental. Like, this was the Cat Copper fadeaway 3-point shot to win the game. Cat Copper hit a 3 at the end of the game. I think it was maybe Greiner second game back. But Cat Copper hit a miracle shot. The problem with the Mercury is Cat Copper is cooled off. Cat Copper is gone from MVP shouts to maybe not making the LW second team. Like, she has really cooled off. And a lot of those fringe Olympic players have cooled off. As in, like, AJ Wilson hasn't cooled off. Stewie's hasn't really cooled off. But, like, if you want to look at the rest of that Olympic team, Sabrina's cooled off since the Olympics. Kat Copper's cooled off to an extent. Jackie Young's cooled off. Alyssa Thomas getting close to averaging her elusive triple single. Like, she just can't really cool off. But, like, there's a lot of these players that are cooling off. Like, so it's going to be a tough one. Fee obviously hasn't. Because Fee was rested before the Olympics. Well, not rested before the Olympics. She was injured, but, like, technically rested. But, yeah, I'll say Lynx in 2. I think if this goes 3, I'm going to call the Mercury, but I'm going to go Lynx in 2. And now we have got the series that everyone is going to be most hyped about. The Indiana Fever versus the Connecticut Sun. And I am not judging the first 3 games of the series. Like, I don't care what happened on the 11th of June. I'm going to tell you guys, this is why you don't judge this game right here. Celeste Taylor played 6 minutes. Temi Fagbenle had her first injury. Christy Wallace was still a starter. No, there was we have the pre-Christy Wallace starting era and the post. The you know what? Let's just call it the the Christy Wallace starting era and the post-Christy Wallace starting era. Even though one of them was Katie Lou starting, which, Jesus, that was no better. But I have a weird feeling that this series is going to come down to one matchup. It's not going to come down to Alyssa Thomas. It's not going to come down to Dewana Bonner. Actually, sorry, 2 matchups. I think this is going to come down to 2 matchups. And it's going to be Kelsey Mitchell versus Marina Mabry. And yes, Kelsey Mitchell is going to score more than Marina Mabry, and they're not necessarily going to match up with each other. But I think Kelsey Mitchell is going to have to average 8 more points per game than Marina Mabry. And, like, if Mabry is coming out and shooting badly, I think the Fever win. Like, Nalissa Smith, I thought, did a really good job on Alyssa Thomas by standing under the basket. The Fever actually really did a good job of stopping this Connecticut Sun team. But the Sun were just, they just stuck with them. Like, the Fever were up big early in this game. I can see by the end of the first quarter, it was, like, this was a Christy Sides masterclass. Like, the end of the first quarter, it was 35-30. Jeez, it was 35 or 33-26. But they were up big, and then they suddenly just started walking the game down. Like, they were up by 12, and then all of a sudden they pulled it out, and they pull it back, and they pull it out again. And in fairness, with 3 minutes to go, Caitlin Clark got a good layup there at the end. Lexi Hull made a big defensive play and got the steal. But Dejanay Carrington, I still feel in this game, got the better of Caitlin Clark. I think Caitlin Clark was good, but like Caitlin Clark had like 19, 5, and 5, which I know is great for any mere mortal, but like not for Caitlin Clark. I thought Dejanay Carrington putting up 19 points, 6 steals, 4 rebounds. I thought Carrington got the better of that matchup. So I think the big matchup is the Carrington versus Clark matchup. And it's not even about the box score numbers. It's will Caitlin Clark get the better of Dejanay? Because I don't think Caitlin Clark has gotten. I think it was an even matchup there. I think it was, and that's the first time it was even an even matchup. I think through the first 3 matchups, you've got Caitlin Clark getting cooked by Carrington. And like, look, I think Caitlin Clark's second best player in the world, maybe the best player in the world. And this version of Caitlin Clark is different than the version of Caitlin Clark that played Carrington the first 3 games. So I'm not going to count that. But it's not an easy matchup for Caitlin Clark to win, especially with the way referees call fouls in the playoffs. If the referees allowed them to maul the Fever, I actually think the Fever deal quite well with that because they've been allowed to be mauled the entire year. And a lot of people are talking about the experience. And that's one thing I'm really confused about because every single game the other team plays the Fever like it's a playoffs. Especially post-Olympic break. Like, even you're playing the Dallas Wings. The Dallas Wings suddenly look like they did last season. So I would say my prediction for this one, I think if Indiana get it back to Indiana, they win. So I'm going to go Indy in 3. I think they get it back to Indiana. I don't think Connecticut beat them twice in a row in Connecticut. And I think if Indiana get it back to Indiana, they win. So we're going to have New York versus Vegas, Indiana versus Minnesota. New York versus Vegas. Best of 3. 2-0 New York. That is my prediction. 2-0 New York. I think this is a matchup that is going to be one of the most anticlimactic matchups we've seen. And yes, I know the Aces are in form. But if you want to look at the Aces' form, yeah, they beat the Sun. They got cooked twice by the Lynx. And they got cooked by the Liberty straight after. They haven't beat the Liberty. They beat the Lynx once this year. Like, yes, they beat the Storm without Jewel Lloyd and without Ezzy Magbagor. And yes, they beat the Connecticut Sun in a freak comeback due to a Kelsey Plum masterclass. As great as Aja Wilson has been in 50% of games, she's averaging 27, but like she'll go and put up 35 and then put up 15 in consecutive games. I'm thinking the Liberty sweep. And neither game is close. The only thing is, like, people are like, oh, historically, like, the Aces they have that, like, championship DNA. But it's like, as bad as Stewie was in the finals, Stewie's won championships. John Quayle's been good, been an MVP. Sloot's won championships, or maybe championship single. You've got Benijah Laney, who's an all-star, who's going to be an elite defender for Kelsey Plum or Jackie Young or whoever's going off. Sloot and Chelsea Gray, I think, are probably even as far as they're both 2 of the best point guards ever, but both of them are hurt. Or both of them not hurt, are like playing below their historical precedent. I'm going 2-0 for Liberty. And then the Lynx versus the Fever. I really want to talk myself into Indiana winning this series. I really want to talk myself into it. But I think the Lynx are just better. I actually think Indiana can bring it back to Indy. And I think the Lynx are just that much better. The Lynx are going to win in Indiana. I think Indiana are going to play Minnesota. I think the first game 1, I think Indiana win. I think game 2, Minnesota win in a blowout. And I think we're going to have the biggest of big anticlimaxes in game 3 in Indiana, where Minnesota win by 15. I think Indy win a close first game, Minnesota 2 blowouts. And then the finals, Minnesota versus New York, best of 5. I think this one goes game 1. I'll go game 1 Minnesota. Game 2 Liberty. Game 3 Liberty. Game 4 Minnesota. I think it goes 5. And I think when it's all said and done, I'm going to go Minnesota. You might be saying, why am I predicting like Minnesota, a team without any championship experience? Just because of the way they play. They won the Commissioner's Cup. The amount of clutch shots this team hits, it is always next man up. Like Courtney Williams, I'm pretty sure. Was she on the Sky team? Was she a champion? Either way, like Fee Collier, an Olympic champion. Kayla McBride, multiple-time All-Star, EuroLeague champion. Like, these players, people being like, oh, these players have never won at the WNBA level before. They've won, like, a lot of these players for the Lynx have won at other levels. And the big thing when it comes to, like, why I predict the Fever over the Sun isn't necessarily due to, and like, other people might be saying, oh, they're too young. And I'm like, you can be extremely young and win the playoffs, especially in the best of 3. You can be extremely young. What you don't want to be is that 24, 25 years old with no playoff experience. But when you're Aaliyah Boston 2 years from winning a championship in college, when you're Caitlin Clark, who has known nothing but success in her entire sporting career, maybe, like, you might be saying, oh, winning, she hasn't won anything, but, like, I'm sorry. if Steph Curry got to it's the equivalent of Steph Curry bringing Davidson to the finals twice in NCAA, even if he lost both times, he's still used to success. Like, people are just dumb. But I think Minnesota win. I'm calling the Minnesota Lynx. The Minnesota Lynx is my prediction to win the WNBA championship.